Welcome back to the channel, guys. Well, for those of you which follow my channel will know I was lucky enough to be invited to the launch of this bike, the Streetfighter V4S. The launch was in Spain. It was a track launch and I was blown away with the performance of this machine on track. You know, way more bike, way more performance that I could ever use on circuit. But you know, track tests are track tests, aren't they? All they prove is how good a bike is on track. And this was phenomenal. Well, I've been riding this for the last 2 weeks on the roads in the UK. So the second part of my review with this bike will be, what is this like as a road bike? And let's be honest, you know, that is the place where this bike is going to spend 80–90% of its time. I mean, if you're never going to take you naked on track, then you're missing out of a lot of what this bike has to offer. But in this video, I'm going to talk you through what I've learned about this machine during the last 2 weeks of riding it around on our lovely potholed British streets. We've got a gorgeous day today. It's about 23 degrees, so it really is a day it's Street Fighter day. Let's put it that way. So if you're interested in the new Ducati Streetfighter, and come on, why wouldn't you be? This bike is phenomenal. Then settle yourselves down, get yourself a nice pint, perhaps. We've got a nice little pub over there, nice shandy, and relax, and I'll tell you all about the new Ducati Streetfighter V4S. Chop C, roll the intro. So as I mentioned, I have a track review on this machine, which I'll link at the top. So if you want to see what this bike is like at the higher end of the rev range, being screamed round a beautiful Spanish circuit, then go and check that video out. We'll give us a little bit of a tickle on the road, as much as we can do, because this bike is actually quite hard to tickle on the road because of the amount of performance it's got. I mean, 214 horsepower. This is the most powerful super naked you can buy. It beats the BMW M1000R by a couple of horsepower. This is the most powerful super naked motorcycle on the planet, really, a production bike. It's got 6 horsepower more than the old machine. It weighs 4 kilos less, so it's got more power, less weight. And basically this bike, there's never been a Street Fighter which is as close to its Panigale brother. So what Ducati have done is they've tried to bring as much of the technology, as much of the performance across from the Panigale to the Street Fighter. So yeah, this thing's incredible. I mean, if you go and check out that other video, you know, I talk about all the specs and how they've done it and all the other information. But for this one, I know it's fantastic on the track, but I want to know is how good is it at 30 miles an hour through the high street. Let's jump on. I mean, that was just a mere tickle of the throttle, you know, and I'm in road mode, so this is the most comfortable mode on this bike, the road mode. And you know, track tests are track tests, aren't they? I've done it before. I've been on a bike on a track launch and you go, wow, it's amazing, you know, it's incredible, but you're only testing it on full throttle. You know, you're not testing. I think the big test is the road test, and I was a little bit worried that this bike might rely too much on its electronics. It might not be as fun as some other machines, and I tell you, this isn't as much fun as the V2 V2 Street Fighter, or the Panigale for that matter. The V2 versions of this bike are more fun than this. This isn't fun. This is a very serious machine. You know, this thing is, like I say, 214 horsepower. The pickup's incredible. You're up to 100 miles an hour in a blink of an eye. So, you know, this is a scary bike. This is an incredibly fast bike. But to manage all of that, Ducati have gone heavily into the electronic systems on here, and there's never been a bike with quite as much electronics governance as this bike. What is so brilliant with this machine is you can turn this into an absolute, you can scare you to death on this if you reduce the levels of electronic intervention. You can scare yourself absolutely stupid. And because
of the electronics all fully adjustable on this bike. You can tune every one of the maps, so all of the modes you can tune exactly how you want it. So the sport mode, the race mode, you know, you can set it exactly how you want and adjust. You haven't got to rely on just a custom mode to be able to tune. You can tune the main riding modes directly exactly how you want it. And because this bike's got the new Öhlins EC3 system, that suspension, it's been really good. I mean, I've tried it on the new Fireblade and it was really hard and firm. Well, I'm pleased to say in the road mode, with it all nice and soft, in the active soft setting, as you can see, I don't know if you saw back there, but there's quite a lot of wallow over the bumps. It is plush, it is lovely in this mode. And then if you want to change it, if you want to spice some things up, and what I've done, and I've got all the electronics, I've got the wheelie control on one, so it'll lift the wheel up a little bit. You know, you can play around with, or I've got a higher traction setting. But if you go into sport mode, not only does it adjust the throttle and the response of the engine, it also adjusts all the suspension for the sport mode. And I've tuned all my sport mode. I've turned wheelie control off in sport mode, which it's a bit of a scary move. One slight criticism: wheelie control, it's got like 8 levels of wheelie control, but level 1 lets it lift up about 12 inches. Anything sort of above level 1, it's the front wheel is absolutely glued to the ground. So you've got to go really level 1 on the wheelie control to allow it to do little wheelies. So I know it's a tiny criticism, and of course you can turn the wheelie control off, and when it's turned off it'll stay off. You don't have to keep messing with it. But even then, I didn't give it full throttle, but the wheel was locked to the ground. So a slight criticism, if we're going to, you know, I'm going to be, this is a £25,000 motorcycle, so I'm going to be super critical of this bike, because, you know, on a bike which costs £25,000, you don't want too many niggles, do you? And that's not really a niggle, because you can turn the wheelie control off, but it is very planted, this bike. Obviously all the wingage helps. It's got the counter rotating engine, which also helps to keep the front wheel on the ground. So this bike has been designed to go as fast as possible and allow, you know, mere mortals to experience that performance. And I think that is what is so impressive with this, those electronic systems. But on the flip side of that, that does reduce a little bit of the fun. Not the excitement, because it's still exciting, but it reduces a little bit of fun and a little bit of playfulness of the motorcycle. So yeah, bikes like the Super Duke are more playful than this. The V2 versions of the Streetfighter, again, are all about fun. This is serious stuff on the V4S. So I'm just in a good old road mode now, and there's, you know, the throttle is still making the full power, but it's a lot softer on the response. You know, if you want to really liven things up, you need to sort of change the mode. So let's go into, we won't go race, let's go into sport. You've got to close the throttle when you change through the modes. But this is very much a bike whereby you have to play around with the modes. A lot of bikes, you just have it in sport and you forget, don't you? Set it and forget, just ride it. This isn't one of those bikes. You really need to use the modes on this. Set it up to your preference, because I've changed this a lot to how it was set out the box. So you really do have to have a play of, don't be afraid to change things. We can easily change it all back again, but have a play around, get it responding. That's how good this bike is. Now when you're adjusting all these things, it makes a huge difference to how it rides. Now I've gone into sport, straight away I can feel there's more feedback from the tarmac. You know, it is a bike where you need to play around with the electronic systems to get the bike performing, oh cobweb, exactly how you want it. Sounds incredible. One thing they've done compared to the old bike, if they fitted slightly bigger radiators to help with the cooling, and they've got the aero sort of pushing the air away from the rider a little bit, and you can notice that. I mean, it's 23 degrees today, it says 24, I think it's about 23. It's a warm day today in the UK, and you know, I've only just set off, but I'm not feeling any heat, and I've got textiles on. You get a little, I've noticed a little bit of heat around your feet and ankles, and you get a tiny little bit through the seat, but it's nowhere near as warm running as the old machine. So that's a great thing, because that was a bit of a problem for me, the heat generated on this bike. They seem to have sorted that. I think it's still a little bit warm, but it's not as warm as it used to be. Buying one of these, the heat from the bike wouldn't be a consideration to put me off buying it, whereas in the past it might well have been. Sounds so good. The brakes are also incredible. It's got the high pure calipers, and they're really nice. Obviously all the suspension does the EC3 system is really clever. I will give you a little bit of a show through the menus in a minute, because there's a lot of them on this. There's a lot of adjustment you can do on this bike, but you can set everything up how you want it. So the suspension wise, you can say, rather than saying I want 3 turns of compression damping on the front, you can say I want more support in the corners, I want more support in braking. On acceleration, I want a bit more support on the rear. So it's all understandable terms for the layman. You know, you've not got to know about suspension. You've just got to go in and say, yeah, I'm finding it sort of diving a lot on the front on the brakes. I like more brake support. So you can tune all that. Again, in the actual mode you're in, so in my sport mode, I can tune how I want the bike to react. But if I go into the road mode, I can say, forget all that. I just want it really soft and comfortable. So yeah, the flexibility you have with the electronics package on this bike, I've never ridden another bike quite like it. It is absolutely unbelievable. What is so good about this bike, and it's something I did notice on track, I mean, the stability is incredible. The way it just tips into a corner, I'm not sure I've quite ridden a bike quite like it. The sort of confidence you get as you turn in on the bike is unreal. This bike just instills you with confidence to basically do anything. You can turn it in, you can put the power on coming out. Just the stability and feeling you get when the bike is on the side of the tyre is unreal. I mean, it really is. I mean, they've done so much work to this. This isn't like the old Streetfighter. If you sit this side by side to the old one, just the way everything's different, the frame's different, everything. Obviously you've no longer got the single-sided swinging arm anymore. That's gone for performance reasons, you know, that's gone, so they've got a bit more lateral rigidity, so it'll move a bit from side to side, but it's stiffer horizontally. So that's what they've done with the swing arm. It's the same thing with the frame, the monocoque frame up front, done the same thing with that. There's more lateral movement in it. Yeah, it's an incredible bit of kit, and probably I'd say the best bike I've ever ridden. Yeah, it's £25,000, but I think it's the best bike I've ever ridden. Are there more fun motorcycles? Yes, there are more fun options than this. This is very, very serious. But what I like about this, which is an improvement over the old model, is because the electronics are so good, you can actually dial things back, and you can have less electronics. You can dial in more fun. You can dial in more fun on this, and you can certainly scare yourself with this. But is it as fun as the Super Duke, let's say? It's probably not as fun as the Super Duke. Is it got more performance than the Super Duke? Yes, you've got more performance. Would I be quicker around a track on this or the Super Duke? I'll be quicker around a track on this than the Super Duke. I would think. I'm not tested that, obviously, but I would think so. Overtaking grunt is just unreal. It's a V4. Woo! It's got loads and loads of mid-range. I mean, this thing, you come out of a corner, you give it a tickle of throttle, you're just gone. There's so much drive, and because the suspension's so good and the feeling's so good, you go on the power earlier where you're more over and you drive out the corner. I mean, when I say the suspension is giving me feedback, it's not, there is good feedback, but it's not too much feedback. You know, it's enough feedback that you're not getting scared, you just got confidence that it's sticking to the road. Not once have I felt any sort of squirm or movement under the bike. And I've been out and I've been pushing this, and you know, it's just such a stable, confidence-inspiring machine, and it always was. and it was almost too stable, too confidence inspiring. It impacted the fun. Well, you can dial the fun back into it now to a degree. It still feels quite heavily managed by the electronics, and these aren't criticisms, these are just observations, so I'm not criticising it for that, just an observation. The tank has been thoroughly redesigned, and you're sort of just your legs lock into the tank beautifully, so the ergonomics of the bike have been worked on, and where you sit on it, the comfort. I mean, I'm 6'2", 20 stone, as many of you will know. I find this perfectly comfortable, absolutely perfectly comfortable. It's quite an upright position. Oh, I thought they might have put a bit of weight on the front wheel, a bit like the B&Ws, but you're very upright. You've got weight on your bum, you've got a little bit on the wrist, the bars are massively wide, you've not even got too much of a leg angle, very comfortable leg angle. Less acute than the Tuono, more comfortable leg position than the Tuono. I find the riding position absolutely superb on this bike. I mean, I maybe would like a little bit weight over the front, a little bit more, just to give a little bit more of an aggressive riding position, but it doesn't need it. It honestly doesn't need it, and I think this does make it more comfortable because you're in this position. So I'm not locked in at all on this bike. I can't feel the tail unit touching my back. I can even move back and do a proper decent tuck on this. Again, if you're going to track this, brilliant. I think if you're not going to do track days on this, you're just missing out so much, because this is insanely good on track. Oh yeah, I was raving about this on the launch. I'm still raving about it now on the road. Everything is just really nice to touch, like sort of the feedback and the feel from the controls is beautiful. I mean, the Brembo clutch lever, the Brembo brake lever, they're really nice feel around your fingers. All of the mechanical gear shift feels really smooth and silky. The rear brake is it's a bit like the Streetfighter V2. It's not too sharp, so you've got a bit of movement in the lever, but it allows you to sort of play with that rear brake. I know you've got all sorts of really clever ABS modes in here where you can have slide control, you know, where you can brake and it will let the back step out, but it will keep it all in check. Incredibly clever stuff, which I'm not brave enough to even attempt to use. But even just the feel from the back brake when you're just going into the corner, it's just beautiful. So the track performance is insane, the road performance is insane. We'll take it through a town in a minute, but the road manners in town are very, very good. It's not as quite as friendly as a straight 4. You know, it is a V4. They don't like being sat too far down in the rev range. I mean, this bike redlines at 15,000 RPM. When you're going along at 3,000 or 4,000 RPM, it feels like the motor's barely spinning, and it's not as happy as it is at 15,000 RPM. So, you know, it's never going to be a straight 4 from a usability point of view in town, but they've got it to a point now where it's perfectly acceptable, even for a fussy old git like me. The mirrors are pretty decent. I mean, should I mention the mirrors? Do you even care what the mirrors are like if you're buying one of these? But they're actually pretty good. Blipper, very nice. There's sort of quite a firm directness to the gear shift. It's not sloppy, it's very precise feeling. But yeah, the quick shifter blipper is beautiful. It's even easy to find neutral. It's even pretty easy to find neutral. I mean, wow. So I hear what you're saying. You're saying, are there anything which is bad on this bike? Well, it's a V4. V4s tend to like the old juice. They've got a bit of a drinking problem, and that's not helped on this bike. The fact that it's only got a 15 litre fuel tank. I think it's 15 litres. It's not very big, the fuel tank on this. So on the motorway, I've actually got under 100 miles until the light came on. So I think fuel, and of course there's no fuel gauge. You know, there's no fuel gauge on this bike. At the launch, I actually asked one of the developers, and I said, look, why is there no fuel gauge on the Streetfighter? And the Panigale, I can understand it. They say, you know, it's a track bike, you don't need a fuel gauge. But I thought the Streetfighter, I mean, there's a bike where it's primarily a road machine. Why no fuel gauge? Basically they said because of the shape of the fuel tank, the way the fuel goes all under the bike, the tank, it's not level, so if you put a gauge in it, it would be wildly inaccurate. And also they said, because it's limited to tank space, they said putting a gauge in it means you've got even less fuel in the bike because you've got to make room for the actual fuel sender mechanism. So they said if you put a fuel gauge in it, it means you're going to have even less fuel in the bike because of all the gubbins to run the fuel gauge in the tank. There's loads of stuff in this dash. You know, you've got the lean angles, you've got the G spots, which tells you obviously where your G's are, but that outer ring tells you where your maximum G's have been. It's even got a G spot, this bike, and it's very easy to find. If you go into the race mode, you've got a really fancy race setup, which also shows all of the rider aids and what they're doing for quick adjustment. Also, I love the fact you've got one of these, a key. There's no keyless on this bike. I don't want keyless, certainly on a bike I want to take on track. You've got a good old-fashioned key on this. Follow the ambulance now, ambulance chaser. So let's go to road mode. Select, you've got to close the throttle, which is a little bit annoying. Oh, shame you can't just put it in there and just press OK without having to close the throttle. But I'm getting super picky now. So that is road mode. So the suspension is softened. The throttle is now gorgeous and soft and really easy. Like closing the throttle, there's not too much engine braking, which really I didn't like before on the older bike. And it's perfectly happy in town, perfectly happy just to pooter along like this. You know, I can feel a little bit of heat now around my ankles and my calves. I mean, it is a hot bike, but it's much better managed than it used to be. And it's probably but I've got no seat heat, which I think was a real problem before, was seat heat. There's not as much seat heat. Seat heat. Say that enough times, that sounds rather odd. So from a town point of view, a fueling point of view, it's absolutely gorgeous, but you may have to play around and change it into the road mode. You know, the sport is a little bit choppy in town, not too bad. But let's just put it in race. Let me put it in race mode and I'll show you. You've got wet as well, of course, which is even softer. So that is now race. You get the race dashboard, and let's see what the response is like in race. Race is set. You can tune, as I say, you can tune all of this how you want it. But my race mode is set to be as powerful as possible. So full power, which I don't think actually affects the power. It means most aggressive throttle response. But even in race, it's a little bit on off in race. You can, I don't know if you can more hear it than feel it probably. A little bit on off in race, but even that that was probably like the old bike a bit. Sort of just, it's on or it's off. It's on or it's off. But thankfully, you wouldn't normally ride through Winchester High Street in race mode. But I say there is a bit of fanning around between the modes to get the best out of the bike. So if you're one of those people who doesn't like fanning with modes, then this may not be the bike for you, because there's a little bit of fannying about with modes with this machine. But what that does mean, and with the customizability of this bike, you can get it to perform exactly how you want it. Oh, if it was slightly less than £25,000, I could be tempted. I think the V2 is more suited for me, because I don't think I could keep my license on this bike. I think I may as well just tear my license up and hand myself in at the local police station.
I spent 2 glorious weeks with the Ducati Streetfighter V4S, and let me tell you, it did not disappoint. After that mind-blowing track launch, expectations were sky high, but this thing, it delivered. The performance is not just mind-bending, it's somehow both savage and approachable. Ducati's tech team clearly sacrificed sleep and possibly small goats to tame this thing. It's a high-performance monster in a lab coat. Now, I've never thrown my leg over a MotoGP bike, but after riding the Streetfighter, I can imagine not just the blistering speed, but the electronics, the poise, the sheer surgical precision. If I had to sum it up in 2 words, complete control. Is it the most fun bike out there? Maybe not. This isn't your giggle machine for the Sunday morning brunch runs. This is a serious piece of kit, but the performance is undeniable. And when you're on it, tucked in, throttling out of the corner, you feel like a MotoGP god. Leathers are optional, ego boost is guaranteed. The latest generation of Ducati motorcycles make awesome road bikes, but their DNA comes from the track. And with the Streetfighter, this has never felt so apparent. I hope you enjoyed the video. There's more to come very soon. I've got a track test of the Panigale V2 and the Panigale V4S around Donington Park. That was an incredible day in the sunshine. I've also got a comparison coming with my Hornet SP and the GSX S1000 with Mossy. I've got a lot of content ready to be edited to bring straight to you. I'm actually off to the TT at the weekend as well, so hopefully we'll get some dry weather at the TT and have a little play around the mountain course, which I'm really excited about. But in the meantime, guys, keep it rubber side down, and I'll see you on the next one. Cheers.